Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two guys who have built careers around discovering what's next. One by creating the spaces and experiences where culture takes shape, the other by spotting artists who define it before anyone else does. Trust me, I promise you will leave here today smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom and ask questions of our speakers. So please feel free to introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And also, this is very important for everyone. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone and not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors without their support, we could not continue to do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and my favorite industry podcast, Unlimited Supply. So let's get down to business. Today, I am pleased to introduce Chad Hillard. He began scouting artists in 2007 and hasn't stopped since. From music fan to blogger, show promoter, manager, and label executive, he has partnered with artists to release hundreds of songs, generate millions of streams, and earn recognition for early discoveries like Billie Eilish and Lorde through Hilly Dilly. Chad also runs Dreams Never Die, an artist management and label company. Before the Data is where 19 years of scouting instinct meets a dashboard built for the people whose job it is to find artists early. Hilly Dilly was one of the most trusted music blogs of the 2010s because it had a gift for finding artists in the moments right before everything changed for them. The quiet weeks before the viral moment, so to speak. The debut single before the major deal. The bedroom demo before the world caught on. That same year now powers the Before the Data scouting dashboard. Every artist on the short list has been personally vetted by Chad himself. The data is automated, the taste is not. Chad, welcome today. It is an honor to have you here, man.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you. You're killing it.
That was way too good for him. That was too much.
Well, wait a minute. Let me tell everybody about you. Sit tight.
Yes, please.
Joining Chad today is Jason Hollis, or Hollis as he likes to be known. He is a creative visionary whose fingerprints are all over Nashville's evolving cultural scene. With more than 2 decades of experience in music production and artist development, Hollis has collaborated with industry icons, including Pharrell and Justin Timberlake, building a career that spans LA, Australia, Asia, and beyond. As a founder and driving force behind the Eighth Room, Hollis has transformed a storied Nashville venue into a destination that blends rock and roll energy with modern style. He's known for curating brands that surprise and inspire, swapping predictable choices for bold ones. The Eighth Room was recognized by Town and Country magazine as one of the 26 rooms shaping culture worldwide, cementing its place among the most influential venues on the global stage. Raised on hard work and creativity, Hollis brings a sense of celebration to everything he does, whether he's championing new talent on his show called Hooked or hosting secret shows. His approach is equal parts meticulous and adventurous, with a knack for making every guest feel like they belong at the center of the story. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Take it away, gentlemen.
Chad, your bio was so much better than mine. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to rewrite mine.
Yeah, you have a decade on me, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well,
I'm like a mentee, but yeah, it's quite the it's always nice to hear your bio ringed out like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because sometimes like you're only as good as the last thing you worked on in the music business, and you kind of forget, oh yeah, I did that. Because it's kind of like I always try to play down because I'm Canadian. I'm like, oh yeah, did I really discover Lord? I mean, yes, definitely part of it, but like, it's just you always want to remember the good things that you did.
Well,
Um,
it's interesting because you're right. We're always looking for what's next, what's next, what's next. That's just kind of like how our brains work, turning rocks over all over the world, trying to find little gems. And,
yeah.
um, and then, yeah, sometimes you have to stop and think that, oh man, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, it's wild. The greatest thing that I've ever heard in my life was a quote by Keith Richards, and he was asked about what was the greatest thing that's ever happened to him in his career, and his answer was like profound to me. His answer was the ability to continue, and
Yeah,
and
that's real.
that always rings true to me because when you start out in your 20s, or like for me, I started out when I was 15, and I left for Los Angeles when I was 17, so the day after I graduated high school. And you just kind of have a hope or a wish or a dream, and then you start in that process of working and grinding and trying to figure out your way, and before you know it, man, it's like 30 years later, and it's weird because I don't know about you, but I don't ever look back. I only look forward.
Oh, too busy in the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think was the driving force? Like for me, I can pinpoint an exact moment in my life where I knew I was going to be delusional the rest of my life and work in the music business. But for you, like I call it intuition, consciousness, God. What was your main driving force that just said to you like, yo, I got to work in the music business. I don't know how I'm going to figure this out, but what was that? What
I,
was that for you?
I've told this story before. I don't think I've ever told you this story. It's
No,
it's
you haven't.
it's crazy though. And in fact, I introduced you to that young girl, that 17-year-old girl that was at the Hooked show, Sophia.
So, Sophia, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I told this to her. It's a profound moment that like it's like crystal clear. I can almost smell the room when I go back to it. We're living. I was raised by my mom. We were living in a little tiny apartment in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I was like 7 years old, and I watched the Muppet Show for the first time, and Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem came on, and it was like it literally blew my mind. Like the characters, Animal, Dr. Teeth, Janice, Zoot, like all these great guys. But then you had like Elton John came on, Liza Minnelli. They had all these great artists. And at that moment, there was nothing else. Nothing else mattered to me except for music. And then I got into my dad's record collection and would just start listening to like Rolling Stones or the Kinks, or, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Linda Ronstadt, Ronnie Millsap, like anything my dad had, I just started playing and listening to. And then before I knew it, like 7, 8 years old, I never went to bed without like the big coily, realistic headphones from Radio Shack plugged into my record player next to the bed, and I would go to sleep listening to music. And that's been since I was 7, and to this day, I go to sleep listening to music every night. And
Wow.
in fact, it's crazy, man. I was, like Spotify gives you the stats at the end of the year about
Yeah,
how
the
much.
rats.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And last year I clocked 78,000 hours on Spotify just listening,
Oh wow.
which is absurd.
I actually listen to less music on Spotify. I like half of that because most of my music listening is trying to find brand new artists.
Yeah.
So like a lot of my listening time is spent on that versus listening to things that I'm actually like liking at the moment.
Well, this is all like, 90% of everything I listen to is nobody knows who they are,
Yeah.
It's just all
Well,
undiscovered. But
Yeah, I see you always sharing brand new artists on your Instagram. Where do you spend the bulk of your time finding these? Is it TikTok, Instagram? Like where are you doing your discovery?
it's a lot of things, man. My Instagram feed is outrageous. I almost feel like I need an assistant just to run my my inbox. But
Did you just
I have a
did
ton
you
of
just
people, yeah, from all over the world sending me, check this out, check this out.
uh
And so then I'll dig in, and I don't know how you listen to music, but for me it kind of is like the Hooked show. Like I have a very short attention
oh
span,
yeah.
and I'll listen to one or 2 seconds. I know where the song is. I usually kind of
Yeah.
know where to move the dial to get into the meat of it, and then I'll take it from a verse into a chorus, and then if they've hooked me, I'll add it to a playlist. I've got a few playlists, like I've got a very long playlist, and it's all like basically undiscovered music. And then I'll go back on a weekend, and I'll start really kind of digging in a bit more to things. And then I
Right.
start moving them up a playlist, and then I move them into another playlist that I tend to share publicly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people scoff that it only takes 2 seconds to figure out if a song is worthy of listening to, but it's true. I mean, I can tell a song is worth listening to within the first second, especially like a lot of songwriters open up with some of the worst lines you ever heard, and it just makes me shut the song off right away because the rest of the song's trash,
Yeah.
right? Like if you hear a generic synth, no, it's probably trash. Like it's just how it goes when you listen to I listen to probably like I don't know 300 or 400 songs a day from brand new artists.
Jeez, yeah, that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot to consume. Well, I think that it's important for everybody to know, and really understand and realize like these are hard facts. And I know that you and I talk data a lot personally, but we live in a 60-second economy with a 6-second attention span, and you really only have 2 seconds to garner somebody's attention before the drop off rate hits at 10 seconds. So it is 60 seconds that we say, but it's a 6-second attention span that we're in right now. And what's crazy about that data was 3 months ago, it was an 8-second attention span. So we've lost 2 seconds. So now we have the attention span of a goldfish. So you literally, I was talking, well, Tim Hunzy, that was on the panel last week, the VP of Big Machine Music. He and I
Yeah.
were talking, and I was talking about that stat, and he said, it's 2 seconds. I was like, I know. You have two
Yeah.
seconds, 2 seconds to grab somebody's attention. So what are you going to do? You know what's wild, man? I'm sure you're kind of like this as well, but I've listened to enough music, and I've been around artist development for so long now that I can look at a photograph of a band and I know what they sound like. I don't even need to listen to them. I know exactly what they sound like based on a photograph. How the photos took, the styling of the band, the way that they position themselves in the photo. I can look at the photo and almost hear how the band sound. And you know if they're going to be good or they're going to be bad too. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. I mean, artists, yeah, you go through TikTok enough, social media enough, you listen to enough music, look at enough press photos, you can tell right away. Like the detail matters, the details matter. But the funny thing is, we always advise artists not to worry about that shit. But the truth is, it's like a fine line, right? Like one underrated thing I see that artists fail at miserably on TikTok is their body movements. Like if I see you move in a way that looks non-confident, I already checked out. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think the consumer does too, right? Because there's a subtle communication that happens with body language. It's like seeing an artist on Hooked when they're not really singing in the right register, they're portraying to the audience that they're insecure. And if you don't make the audience believe, it doesn't really matter, right? Because that's the biggest thing. Like I tell a lot of people right now, like the best example of an artist that succeeded and they can't sing is Malcolm Todd. Signed to Columbia Records. The guy is fucking crushing it, but he can't sing. So it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, you need to have incredible branding and this and that, but like you don't have to. It's just it has to communicate some sort of language that I don't give a fuck what you think. I'm a star, but also not be like lazy and pretend that just because you think you're a rock star, you are a rock star. You know what I mean? It's like these very subtle, fine line things that really that communicate with the audience and people like us that go, okay, this person, regardless if I like their look, it turns me on to them as a consumer, so to speak.
I'm going to add to that, but talking about Hooked, I want to give a shout out to Kanud. Kanud's in our chat right now. What's up, Kanud? Kanud's one of our Hooked, been on our Hooked show a couple of times. Looks like a rock star, acts like a rock star. Everybody who's watching, go listen to Kanud on Spotify or follow him on Instagram or whatever. But to get back to that point, confidence, man, confidence is everything. You know, if you don't believe in yourself, why am I going to believe in you? You know, and then why should I take my time to then try and build you up and help you become confident? You know, confidence is, it's either you have it or you don't. And I think that we're in a time right now where, you know, we're out of rock stars. Who's gonna fly who's flying the flag? Who's a rock star? You know, we have Liam Gallagher from Oasis might be the last living rock star.
We need different kind of rock stars. We don't need, because it's kind of a loose definition. I don't want to work for a rock star because if every artist needs to be their own independent business, they need to be responsible and, you know, not be an idiot and throw TVs out their window. Like, yeah, if you've already broken and you're playing 20,000 cap rooms and you throw the TV out the window, yeah, I don't give a shit. But if you're a brand new artist and you pretend you're a rock star and you're lazy and you don't show up, you don't put an effort in, nobody gives a fuck. Like, shut
Yeah.
up, like, get to work, right? So it's like, I think a lot of artists here that they want them to be a rock star and it's an excuse for them to check out and be an asshole. It's like, no, like, nobody gives a shit. No one's going to work for you unless you, like, work as hard as the manager or anybody else involved, which, you know, rarely happens in the music business, unfortunately.
And I think what I'm referring to mainly is the swagger, that the exuding of this confidence, right? And then stepping up to the mic and having an absolute presence. You know, you just, I don't see a lot of it. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's because the pay to play has gone down significantly. So there's a lot of, you know, I say this tongue in cheek, but a lot of delusional artists that probably shouldn't be artists. So I think there's a general consumer fatigue on artists just ever since TikTok took over. Like everyone's always doing the same song and dance, like, you know, support my music. And everyone's just kind of tired of it because I think that's why you see a lot of artists that don't even have that much talent becoming successful because they know how to communicate to their audience, right? Because like people don't people don't really listen to music on a limb and on their own and use active listening skills and go, oh, I like that song, right? They're looking for shared experiences with other people. So like if you're an artist and you don't understand how to achieve that, you're never going to be successful because the average consumer, again, does not give a shit about the quality of your music.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy, but that's the way it is right now.
Tom Truitt just jumped in the chat. He said wet leg front woman. Yeah. You know, there's some out there for sure that exude that. I'm talking about legacy. I'm talking about like somebody that's going to go down as one of the greatest of all times. You know,
In this era?
yes, that's what I'm talking about. And we still have a ways to go, but like, you know, I just, and there's a few that I look at right now. Like I talk about Kells all the time. You know, Kells to me is a rock star. She's a business person. She's, you know, the way that she's going about presenting herself as an artist, her work ethic is crazy. Her confidence is wild. Her voice is insane. She owns all of her data. She's doing everything very differently as far as like, you know, not going to venues. She's going to Peer Space and booking hair salons and diners after hours. And she has built an absolute cult following. And now, you know, she just signed to Republic Records and,
good for her.
but she did a JV deal. So she owns everything. They're a business partner with her. She owns everything. She's not stupid, man. She is setting herself up for mad success. And you know, I don't know if I told you this, but when Kels played here 3 months ago, she was at 36,000 followers. She's at 580 something thousand followers right now. It's 3 months. In 3 months. And I told her record label head, I was like, you have 18 months before everybody in this country knows her name, but because of her confidence and her work ethic. You know, not just the voice, but she is America's version of Amy Winehouse. And she's got that energy, but she's got the business sense. So when she played the Eighth Room, she hit me up and she was like, I want to sell my own tickets. I was like, do whatever you want to do. I'm here to support. So she sold all of her tickets through Stripe directly to her fan base. We did zero promotion on my end, no promotion. She sold the place out at 150 tickets. Her strategy is she sells through Stripe, and it's pay whatever you want to pay for the ticket. If you only have $5, pay $5. I want you to come see the show. If you have $1, pay $1. Just get in, pay something. And the average ticket price for her show that night was $75.
Wow.
So she did $10,500 that night in tickets. She did $2,000 at the merch stand, and then she had a Venmo up there. Like if you wanted to give her money, she did another $3,000 in Venmo because people felt like they didn't give her enough money for the tickets.
Wow. I mean, she's
doing this night after night after night after night after night.
Yeah, she's an example. If you don't have that kind of mentality as an artist, you're just living on hope and a prayer because that's what it takes. I mean, that's why I think most artists now don't break until they're 28, 29 years old because when you're 19, you're just not going to have that mentality. Like you got to get kicked in the teeth as a business entrepreneur, as a music artist, like because you won't look at the success in the right lens that you should and know how hard it takes, right? Like you have to continually reinvent yourself every single day. What can I get better at? What am I not doing wrong? And then execute on that because once you build those pillars and those bricks start stacking up, that's when you see real success. So like kudos to her because that shit's hard, man. I mean, like, you know, artists have it very hard. But a question that I wanted to ask you, kind of harkening back to what you just talked about, with everything being so democratized and fractionalized with social media, and there's no homogenized culture anymore, based off of the radio and MTV being gone. Do you think even we'll see another Drake or another huge rock star in today's times with that going on?
I think inevitably, like the cream always rises to the top. I think if you're great, it's gonna happen, you know. So yeah, I do. What I'm missing is really like this, you know, like I grew up watching like Jimmy Page and Mick Jagger and these absolute legends, you know. If you start thinking about rock stars, we can start rattling them off, you know, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Elton John. The list is long. And kind of what I look at, and I've been kind of studying lately, is you look at like the 1960s. The 1960s had their rock stars. They had an image and they had a sound about the 1960s, right? 1970s had a completely different image, had a different sound, different rock stars or rock stars that kind of transitioned into that sound and that look and that vibe. But it's a totally, like from 1960 to 1970, two completely different eras, two completely different sounds, right? Now you go into the 1980s, you got Duran Duran, Wham, Culture Club, you know? It's this poppy kind of, you know, synthy, cool shit that I loved. Completely different sound, completely different look. Moving to the 1990s, right? Now we've got the second British invasion happen. We have Oasis and Blur and Kula Shaker and The Verve and then over here we had like Stained and you know this just homogenous bullshit rock that I just absolutely hated, which brought me back to studying the guys and what was happening with the British invasion again, the second British invasion. And then you had was grunge came in, right? But that the 1990s still had a sound. It was grunge, it was Britpop, right? You had that. You look at like the 2000s, where since early 2000 to 2026, I feel like we're genreless. What was the sound of 2000 to 2010? What was the look? Because I can tell you what, man, in the 1960s, there was a language built around that look and that sound.
Do you blame this on TikTok?
No, I blame a lot of it on the record industry.
But okay, the record industry is built off of market share, right? Bringing back value to the shareholders. So is it the record industry or is it the structure of the record labels going from private to public? Because that to me might be it. Because again, if you're chasing market share, I don't blame them for TikTok changing the business. And
Yeah.
because the A&R guy is now gone. Now it's the lawyers and the A&R research people and the people that understand TikTok are running the business now, essentially.
I mean, the vast majority of major label presidents are come from an accounting background or a lawyer background.
That's
And what I miss is I miss Ahmet Artigan, Andrew Loog Oldham, Jerry Moss. Like in the mid to late 90s when A&M Records closed, that was the last bastion of hope, I feel, for record labels, because those guys were record men. That was a record company. They took chances. They developed artists, and where I see the failure is if you go back, to even the 50s, all the way through the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. You had record labels that these guys they weren't venture capitalists. They were guys that believed in something, and they put their money where their mouth was, and they would go in and they would develop things. They weren't just taking and throwing shit against the wall to see what stuck. There was actual real development going on, and they looked at things like when you or I find an artist or we discover an artist. I know personally for a fact, because I've done it now a bunch of times. If I go in and I'm going to start working with an artist, I'm spending 3 to 5 years of my time. It's a time commitment.
It's probably more than that now.
Yeah, but I just don't think we have that any longer. And I can't blame TikTok for it. I blame the record labels. In my opinion right now, record labels have an image problem. They have a branding, marketing, and image problem.
That's why. Have you, just not to switch gears a little bit, but do you follow UMPG on Instagram? Jody Gerson has made a new initiative that she's put herself front facing to kind of change that. Now, obviously, it's a publishing company, but I think the labels and the industry are starting to realize that. So maybe they've heard that feedback and they're leaning into it now.
I hope so. It's still going to take a decade for them to.
I mean, it's all the best innovation is going to happen outside the record labels, anyways. I mean, they fired their best A&R staff because they wanted to get the salary off the books, right? Which doesn't make sense because they're just printing so much money. I mean, my pushback on the labels is if you look at a tech company, they spend 20% on R&D, research and development. So why wouldn't you give someone the keys to know what they're doing to develop artists and give them 5 to 8 years? But they don't want to, because they're publicly traded. And I just don't think most people have the stomach to gamble in the music business. I mean, you'd be better off buying
Yeah, well, I firmly believe that publishers now are the A&R guys. They're the A&R people.
If
They are developing.
if they're not overworked, I mean, most publishing A&Rs have so many clients that they don't really get back to you unless things are moving. But that's another subject.
One thing that kind of like not pisses me off, but it discourages me some with like some of the younger generation coming in. Now I'm sounding like an bitter old man, but
Well,
it is
you don't look like it.
it's discouraging in the sense of when I was coming up, I studied record men. Any book that I could get, I read it. I read everybody's biography. I read books on the music industry. I read everything you need to know about the music business by Donald Passman, even though that was like scratching your eyeballs out to get through. I read everything. And then I also went back and when we had to buy, music, I studied the 1940s. I studied the 1950s. I studied the 1960s, 70s. I was in the 80s. I was in the 90s present, but I studied music back to the Renaissance era. I can sit down and talk to anybody about any generation of any music, know the artist, know everything that was kind of based around it. And now you talk to younger people that want to get into the music business and they don't have any idea about anything at all. They don't know who Ahmet Artigan is, and he should be studied,
There was Chris
Very
Anacute.
Gordy.
Chris Anacute put out an Instagram post a couple of days ago, and some of his followers didn't know who Clive Davis was. Like,
Yeah,
imagine
see,
that. How do you not know who Clive Davis is?
you
Like,
should
that's
be,
that's crazy to me.
you should, yeah, I mean, and there's all these schools and like,
We've talked
dude,
about this. We've
yeah, I
talked.
know, man. Like, you don't even be started with this because it's like, what are you teaching these kids? Because I now have interns and I use interns and I'm like, you don't even know,
Well,
like, you don't know
they
any.
objective reality to the younger generation is oppressive. So they view everything through the lens of subjective reality. So my feelings matter more than facts, right? So I'm a victim, and a lot of artists have this delusion that just because they make music, they deserve to make a living off it. Oh, I could play guitar. Oh, I mixed and mastered my song. Or I can sing. It's like nobody cares. Like people have forgotten that we live in a meritocratic, top-down world. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that don't become successful, but is it responsible of everyone to be on the same level playing field? Like, no, there's going to be people that are better than you at things, and we've taught people through a whole bunch of indoctrination and brainwashing that you're special and we love your music just because you made it. It's like, no, like when I played Hook, people booed me because I gave harsh feedback to an artist, but I asked them, "Are you going to go and stream the music?" No, of course not. So it's like stop being delusional. Like I think there's just an over codification of every. I don't. It's. I mean, I don't want to get into it because it'll lead down politics, but it's just like everyone now has a therapist. Like, sorry, like sometimes going to a therapist is not going to actually benefit you. I mean, maybe it's different for like trauma situations, but everyone's just soft now. And I
Yeah.
think it's because people are afraid of ruffling the feathers. But if you're in the music business and you do not give harsh feedback, it's the worst thing for an artist because they're going to just waste time and money in their life. And like, again, like, you know,
The
you
greatest thing
can't.
that you can possibly do for yourself, and this is for any artist that's out there, anybody that wants to get into music business or anything, is like, don't be offended by anything. Like, don't let anything offend you. Like, nothing offends me. I don't care what anybody. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. You know, at this point in my career, I don't care. You know, I care about my family and I care about making shit happen. And that's it. And the haters, bring it on. I love it. You know, I don't care. But it's going back to this. So the one girl that I introduced you to, Sophia or whatever, you know, her mom flew her in from Tampa, Florida, because she's a fan of Hooked, which is crazy to me.
Are you serious? That's why they were there?
They flew in that day. Yeah. And then they left on Friday or whatever. I don't even know what today is, but I think
That's amazing.
And she was looking at NYU and she was looking at Belmont University. She wants to go into the music business. And I told her, she was like, do you have any advice for me? And I was like, yeah. I was like,
don't go to school.
Well,
that's what I told her.
I know. You know, there is a level to that of gaining some kind of knowledge. Most people aren't like you and I. Like, I didn't go to school. You know,
I did. I went to audio engineering school. I don't regret it. But I mean, now in the age of artificial intelligence, I mean, like, if you're going to go to school, especially music school, first of all, you should be able to afford it. Don't go into significant amounts of debt. But also, a lot of people do it for networking. But I think the greatest opportunities right here, being curious and using technology and finding out where do you fit in the ecosystem of the music business. Now, of course, like I was telling Sophia, I'm like, not everybody is an entrepreneur in the music business. It's all about your tolerance for risk. You know, I think most people should go work for other people and learn how to like work well in the system. But yeah, I mean, going to school, like my kids, I'm not going to tell them to go to school. My job as a parent is to teach them how to think for themselves. And that is going to be the most important skill in the future, because authenticity, taste, all that stuff is going to be super important, because anybody's going to be able to have access to intelligence. Like the Frontier release that Claude just put out a couple weeks ago, Babel 5 was incredible. So when people start using that, I mean, it's going to get crazy. And only 2% of the world population uses AI right now. So the potential for people to use that instead of going to school is, I think.
So Mark Sampson, he just wrote, follow their dreams. Passion is way more important than school. I agree with that. And that's one thing that I think we both said to that young girl, you know, and I told her, I was like, the passion, if you have passion, that's purpose. That's real purpose. And that'll take you so much further than anything else will, any school. Because passion turns into purpose, which turns into drive, turns into motivation, it turns into determination. It's all positive things, right? My biggest thing is if you're a carpenter, if you're a builder, right? And you go build a house, like your first day on the job, and you got your toolbox, and you set your toolbox down and you open your toolbox, and all you have in that toolbox is a hammer. It's all you got. You're not going to get very far building a house. You know, you can't even lay the foundation. So my thing is, if you're young and you're interested, if you're an artist, if you want to be a producer, if you want to be a record man, if you want to be a manager, if you want to be an agent, you need to have a fucking toolbox, man. You need to go and you need to study. You need to be a student of your craft. And I take pride in knowing all the useless information that I know, because it shaped me into the person that I am. You know, learning what works for people, what doesn't work for people, and books and audio books now, I mean, Siri can read it to you. You don't have to fucking read anymore. But that stuff, that's ammunition, man. And the more you start to apply things from people that you've studied, you start gaining more tools, you know? And what one of the things was when I was working, so I worked for MCA Decca in 95, 96, I think to 97. I started in the mailroom, and then I quickly moved up to A&R. I worked under Frank Liddell, Travis Hill, Mark Wright, Tony Brown, Scott Borchetta. It was the greatest label on the planet to be at that time. It was legends working there. And, I was in a session one time with Tony Brown, and I went up to him after it, and I knew Tony well enough because Tony kind of plucked me out of the mailroom and moved me to A&R, and I bounced between Decca and MCA. And I asked him one day after the session, I was like, Tony, I want to do what you're doing. I want to do what you're doing. What do I need to do that? He's like, man, you need to go out there and you need to find yourself a band. You need to go make something happen. You need to go break it. And you need to be the one that makes all that happen. And I was like, okay.
How do I do that?
So I need to go out and I need to go make shit happen. He's like, yeah. So 2 weeks later, I quit. I gave a 2-week notice. I was like, I'm going to do that. And it's just like developing a TV show or podcast like I'm doing right now. You're not thinking about all the shit that you have to do, all that comes with that, the risk, the financial burden that you have. But I just was one of those guys that was like, I'm just going to go do this. And I went out and I went independently. And, the struggles that you have to go through are insane. The character building, that being completely broke and just living off of your own confidence or your own passion, your own desire to go and make things happen and succeed, that'll get you through anything. And by doing things like that, you start to add more and more tools to your toolbox. So in 2001, when I'm out developing bands and I got my first major label record deal, it was mental, it's mental, because what you think is going to happen when you reach that level, I've just got my first major label, deal. I get to produce an album. What you think is going to happen is not what actually happens. Your ceiling is so high because we're like, oh, all the dreams are going to come true. Here it is. It's like, no, man. You're pushing a boulder up a hill, and all that you do is when you get that first break is you have a rest period, before you start to push the boulder up the hill again. And you have all of these new problems and circumstances.
And you're not even fully responsible for that boulder yourself. It's other human beings,
Right.
the artists,
Yeah.
which is the sketchiest business of all, because we all dream that we could be artists, because hypothetically we would take it to the level we know we could take it. But most artists are incredibly volatile, right? So like that's why it's like, you may think that you're going to reach the highest levels, but it depends. There's so much that has to go right. And a lot of it comes down to the mentality of the artist.
Yeah. So just really quick, Paul Zamek, man, I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic. Paul says, isn't passion a given? Why else would you pursue a career in music? Keeping your passion alive in the face of rejection is the key. I agree with the last line that you said. Keeping your passion alive in the face of rejection is key. Yeah, because you're going to get 10,000 no's before you get one yes. That's an absolute fact. You're going to have every door shut in your face. You're going to be told no. You're not going to get phone calls returned. You're not going to get emails returned. They don't give a shit about you until you bring value to them. You have to have something that they want. Now, isn't passion a given? No, absolutely not. Most people aren't passionate. And that's what I see all the time. I look at artists every day, and now I see artists week over week over week that come up, and you can see the ones that have the real passion behind it, and you can see the ones that don't. So passion is not a given. It's not, and not everybody has that. You have to be an artist, You have to take a switch in your brain and you've got to turn that switch and you have to say nothing else matters. And I tell this to artists still to this day. No, there's no girlfriends. There's no anything. There's one thing and one thing only, and that's what you're doing and what you're putting your time into. You have to be selfish. And being selfish means you have to invest in yourself and you have to go put the fucking work in, because most people don't have work ethic. And it's a constant. You see it every day. Most people, as an artist, as a producer, I'm talking to artists and I'm like, yeah, what'd you do last night? Well, I went out to the Red Door and I was hanging out with my friends and blah, blah, blah. It's like, the fuck are you doing, man? Like, you don't have time for that. If you want to be an artist and you really have passion, you don't do anything. You give up friends. You give up going home for Thanksgiving. You give up girlfriends. You give up boyfriends. You give up everything because all you can focus on is what you have to do, because the window is like this. I didn't even start making money until my mid 30s, and I'd already spent a decade in the business, and it's like you have to work your ass off. And that level of passion, you don't see a lot. So passion is not a given.
It's actually rare now.
It is rare. Yeah.
Most people are in the music business for the wrong reasons. But knowing that about work ethic, you should hear that and be super inspired, because you know that you show up every single day and do the work every single day. You will eventually surpass all your peers. And that's the unlock that you're talking about. Yeah. That's all I did. I built a career not because anybody gave me anything. It's because I woke up every single day. I had a system. I repeated it. And I knew that if I looked at things over a 30-year horizon instead of how can I get successful next year, I was going to beat everybody. And it was, I'm not even an artist. I just listened to music and discovered it early because I have good taste and I have the discipline. So it's like there is no excuse for anybody in this reality to not be successful at anything. And it's kind of sad, but it's also, when you understand that, there's a massive opportunity, because most people are lazy. They want quick dopamine hits, right? Like even in the TikTok era, right? Like if I'm an artist, I would set up a system. I'm posting 3 times a day for the next year. I would not look at the scorecard, but I know where I'm going to end up is significantly a lot farther along the playing board versus if I just didn't have a plan. I was just willy-nilly every single day. But artists, they don't think like that. And despite how much we can coach them, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach it to drink, unfortunately.
Go back to Kells, right?
Yeah.
Her philosophy, I'm posting the same song 5 times a day with 5 trial reels and 5 stories. And she did that for a year before Gone took off,
Yeah, and she's posting content she's already posted, which artists hate to do that. They think that I posted this 3 days ago, someone's going to see it. It's like, no, nobody cares. First of all, everything's an interest-based algorithm now anyway. So people, every time you post, you're not seeing the same fans is not going to see the same post. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, no. And listen, I'm going to give a lot of credit to these younger artists now, because I'm not saying that they don't have work ethic, because clearly they do. Because now as an artist, you have to be a songwriter, you have to be a producer, you have to be a marketer, you have to understand social media, you have to understand analytics, you have to understand so much more. The days of Jackson Brown sitting in his apartment writing songs all day and being paid by a label are completely over. And then him being able to turn in his body of work, and then the marketers go market it, the record people put it out, the promoters go to radio, all that stuff. Those days are gone. They're just
gone like 20 years ago.
Yeah. So the artists now, what they have to do is 10 times the work. So there is work, there's work ethic, most people don't have a game plan. It's the biggest thing that I see currently. There's no game plan. So you can go and you can put all of this work in, but unless you have a chief aim, like a clear defined goal, in 6 months, I want 100,000 followers. Whatever, right? Once you have that, you can reverse engineer that. Well, how do I get to that? What do I need to do? Well, I need to post this video 3 times a day. I need to do this. I need to do that. And that's one of the biggest things that I see is game plan. No game plan. No game plan. No game plan. In fact, we talked on when you were on the panel on Hooked, we talked to an artist about that. We were like, you have a great voice. That was a great song. Clearly you have talent, but we looked at his stats from your company before the data. We looked at his stats and you were like, you're posting 0.01 times, on Instagram. You have average you're doing nothing. And then I went into like game plan. You need a fucking game plan, man. You need to know what you're doing. And I told him that night, I was like, because he came up to me after and he was like, man, like, if I go home and I write a game plan, will you look at it? And I was like, yes, absolutely. 2 days later, he sent me a game plan. I read it. I looked at it. I thought it was good. And then I sent him 3 pages of notes back.
Wow.
This is good, but, you need to dig further and deeper. And so, I do give it to the artists now because they're doing my job, they're doing your job, they're doing a marketing they're doing everybody's job. And that's taxing, not only do I have to be a good songwriter now, but I have to figure out what's going to hook and what's going to work. And I've got to go film this thing. And I've got to become an editor, and then I've got to figure out the algorithm and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And, but the thing is like, that's a tool. And kind of circling back to like 2001 when I went independent, we had YouTube. YouTube had just launched. We had MySpace. We had these different tools, and I learned the ins and outs of everything social media. By 2006, 2007, even to like 2008. I started getting jobs that some of my Grammy-winning friends weren't getting. I was getting the jobs over them because I knew how to go in. I knew how to do their job. I knew how to go in and I knew how to film it. I knew how to edit it. I knew social media. I knew the back-end analytics. I knew the data. I knew all the shit, Yeah. And just you keep adding those tools. So artists now, whether they know it or believe it, they probably have a pretty good sized toolbox, It's just taking and filling the whole thing in. It's like pouring water in it so it fills all the space, and that's a plan.
There's tools for them to learn how to use the tools. There's so much information out there for artists to figure it out. I mean, there's never, like you said, and everyone says all the time, there's never been a better time to be an artist now. There's no gatekeepers anymore, right? So it's all about your mentality of how you approach it. And honestly, like, I have empathy, but you're talking about the outliers there. Most artists they're lazy. They don't want to work. So until I see an artist working, I don't have much like empathy for them anymore because I've spent my entire career trying to help artists. And I'm not talking about artists I work with right now, but they've all let me down one way or another. Yeah. Right? Because it's like, we all know you can't want it more than the artist, and that's always the case. So that's for me has been one of the biggest struggles in my career is that like I can't control what the artist does, and they don't have the right mentality. It drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah, I learned that lesson. I learned that lesson the hard way. I had a band in like 2006, 2007, and it's funny, because I have music sent to me from all over the place. My mom, of all people, called me one day and she was like, hey, this lady that I work with, her son's in a band, blah blah blah. Would you mind listening to it? I was like, yeah, send it to me. And I listened to it like a week later, and they were really good, kind of what I was looking for. You know, it was like a hot AC, triple A kind of not adult contemporary. It was like a Matchbox 20 kind of thing, and I was looking for that at that time. And I brought these guys out to Los Angeles. Well, actually, I took them. I went down to New Orleans and I produced their demo. And I had a buddy of mine in Nashville. I flew him out to New Orleans where we were at Piety Studios, and I had him come in and take a picture of the band. And I had him styled. I had everything. I had the studio. I had the picture that I wanted. He got. And then he went off and he had the picture, made into an 8x10 or whatever. And I FedExed that to one of my friends at Universal. And I said, hey, I'm sending this to you first. And you need to call me tomorrow because you're going to get it. You like in this letter, say, you're getting this. Call me tomorrow because the next day I'm sending it to this person. And he called me and he was like, listen, I don't know what you're doing, but based on this picture, whatever you're doing, I want. So we ended up doing a deal with Universal, sight unseen.
No, he didn't hear any music, just a photo?
Yeah, just a photo. Yeah. And
that's crazy.
I went in and then I brought these guys out to LA and I drove them like a machine, By the time we got to here's the record, here's everything, we're ready to go, I learned that I was the one that was pushing this thing up the hill almost by myself.
Yeah, you helped them skip too many steps that they needed to learn on their own.
Yes, and that was a very hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah,
but it was crucial in my growth at that time because I was like, I can't be the one that wants it for you because the whole thing fell apart.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 30 something.
Okay.
In my 30s. It was like 2006, 2007, something like that. But the lesson was I can't be the one that drives the ship. You have to want it more than I want it for you. Because as soon as I took a step back, it just completely fell apart. And it was done. It was completely done. It was over. As soon as I took a step back, it was over.
Yeah, well, that's not a good sign. I mean, it makes me think of the debate of management styles. Like my management style is I'm not trying to micromanage you. Like once I see enough feedback from you that you're not listening, I'm going to stop. Like I'm not one of these managers that wants to yell at the artist all the time. I mean, like I'm not afraid of confrontation, but I don't want to do that shit. Like if you can't figure it out, you're never going to be an artist, you know what I mean? But other people would say, well, it's the manager's job to like manage and you got to bring opportunities. But I think in today's days and time, if the artist doesn't understand it, there's nothing anybody can do. Doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, the artist is never going to break. It's never going to work.
I agree.
So you almost have to let them fuck up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's the only way they're going to learn. There was an interesting comment that I saw from Al Moss. You have to have a realistic picture of your level of talent. Don't just listen to your family and friends. I agree with that 100% because they're going to lie to you. You know what's funny is your closest friends aren't sharing your music as an artist.
No, nobody cares.
For a reason.
Honestly, if you ever hear something out of the mouth when you're talking to an artist, oh, my friends love it, or my parents love it, or there was 20 comments in my Instagram post, like, no, I mean, there are nuances to that, but it's just like, yeah, nobody cares.
No, nobody cares, man.
I mean, that's a revelation when you're in the music business too, is like, when you don't care that nobody cares, that's when you win, right? It's like,
And that's what I kind of went, said earlier. Like, you just can't give a shit about what anybody thinks. And if you do, you're just going to be offended constantly, or you're never gonna know what's real. The only thing that you can do is have a goal, have a purpose, and drive the fucking ship as fast as you can drive the ship.
yeah, well said.
Yeah, man. Oh, Tom's back. What's up, Tom? Speaking of living legends, Tom Truitt, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, guys, you have been preaching truth for the last hour, and I hope the audience has heard it. I've seen a lot of commentary in here that everyone's high-fiving you. This is, you guys know what you're talking about. And I hope the young artists that are out there listening are taking heed of this, because these are grizzled veterans that know what the hell they're talking about. And if you think that you can cut corners and skip steps and become a superstar overnight, ain't happening. So thank you for giving us a good dose of reality today. Furthermore, to the audience, I promised you would leave here smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. I think these gentlemen delivered on that. So thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. And Hollis, I can't wait to come see your venue, man. Put me on that call list when those secret shows happen.
Yeah, man. Listen, I'd love to get you on the panel for Hooked as well. I'll have I'll have Gail reach out. You'll have a ball, man. Chad's been on it. You'll have a fun time. It's cool.
I'm in, definitely. But nonetheless, folks, thank you so much for your time and attention today. Keep going. Be nice to each other, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity.
Peace.
Right on.